This class, we're going to talk about the effects of price and income on the quantities demanded. And in particular, we're going to look at the concept of elasticity. Now, this measures the sensitivity of the quantity demanded of a good to the change in its price. It could be, in fact, that it measures the sensitivity of the change in demand for a good with respect to its changes in income or changes in the effectiveness of advertising. But we'll take it as price. It could apply to the others, but we'll take it as price. It's quite common to take it as price, at least at the start. Now, the price elasticity of demand is measured by the percentage change in the quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in the price. It's a very simple expression if we think about it. It's just the percentage change in the quantity demanded with respect to the percentage change in the price. If we look at the elastic demand, then when the price elasticity is more negative, more than say -1, i.e. when the percentage change in the quantity demanded exceeds the percentage change in price. So let's say the price fell by 1% and the demand expanded because now the good is cheaper, so the demand expands but by more than 1%. So the price falls by 1%, but the demand, let's say, increases by 10%. That's elastic. It's stretched a lot. So elastic, when one changes, it measures the responsiveness of the other one. Let's say a fall in the price of the product leading to a change in the demand for the product. So if quantity falls by 7% in response to a 5% increase in price elasticity, then it's, in terms of percentages, it's -1.4. That's the measure of the elasticity. And we can use this figure, this elastic figure, to just get a quick fix on what's happening in markets. As prices change and the quantities change, we know how proportionately everything is changing. So it's a very useful figure. We'll see how it's used as we go through the whole course, not just through economics, but it crops up elsewhere as well. And we'll see how important it is. So for the moment, that's where that's got to. Now we have also got an inelastic demand. This is when the elasticity lies somewhere between -1 and 0. In other words, when the percentage change in the quantity demanded is smaller than the percentage change in the price. In other words, the price changes, but the quantity demanded still stays roughly the same. It's inelastic. It doesn't change. It doesn't stretch. So the price changes, but the quantity demanded remains roughly the same. If the quantity demanded falls by 3.5% in response to a 5% increase in the price elasticity, then it's 3.5 divided by 5, which is -0.7. We always get a negative figure when we talk about demand, by the way, because demand curves are downward sloping. So we always get this negative figure. You can just ignore it. We accept all demand curves, generally speaking, slope downwards. There are some exceptions, but these will be dealt with in different places. So as the demand curve slopes downwards, we'll have a negative response. You can forget the negative sign if you want. It doesn't really matter. When the price elasticity is exactly -1, when the percentage change in the quantity demand is equal to the percentage change in price. Now, when that happens, the quantity demanded, let's say, falls by 5% in response to a 5% increase in price, then we have this -1. it's a cutoff between elastic and inelastic demand. If we have a look at it in the diagram, it's in the middle of the diagram here, touches the axis, and we take the middle point, that's unit elastic. This is the inelastic demand, and that's the elastic demand. So elasticity varies all along a straight line demand curve. And that's important to remember. Elasticity is not fixed. We can't tell the elasticity of demand by looking at the demand curve. If it's flat or if it's more vertical, not vertical, more has more slope, let's put it that way. If it has more slope, then we can't just look at it and say it's inelastic. It varies all along a straight line demand curve. And every one of them will have an elastic section and an inelastic section. And in the middle will be unit elasticity. Now, what determines elasticity? Well, the ease with which customers can substitute another good. That's really the determinant. Consumers can readily substitute one brand of detergent for another if the price rises. So we expect the demand to be elastic. If consumers go to the supermarket or the hypermarket and the price of, let's say, washing detergent has increased, they might buy a different one. Or might even go to a different store to see if they've got a different price. If all the detergents rise by the same amount, then they can't switch. In that case, the demand is inelastic. They have to buy it because all the detergents go up by the same amount. If just one goes up by a large amount, they'll switch to a different one that hasn't increased. In that case, the demand is elastic. It varies. As the price goes up, people switch away from it. As the price goes down, they switch back to it. If all the prices for all detergents goes up by the same amount, then it's an inelastic demand. It doesn't distort the preferences. It may influence the amount purchased because people may economize, try to cut back on that particular item. Elasticity tends to be higher in the long run. In the short run, customers are not able, or they're not even prepared to adjust their pattern of expenditure. In the short run, we're creatures of habit. But in the long run, we do change. So demand tends to be more elastic in the long run. We have a little table here to show what's going on. Let's say the demand is elastic here. Demand is elastic. For a price increase, total revenue will decrease. People would switch away from buying it. Demand is elastic. The price increases, people buy a lot less. So the total revenue for the company will fall. For a price decrease, a lot of people will switch over. So the total revenue will increase. So when the demand is elastic, we'll have these impacts on the company for price changes, which have to be borne in mind by the people in the companies when they're setting the price. If the demand is unit elastic, that means if the elasticity is equal to 1, then cutting the price or increasing the price doesn't do anything. It leaves total revenue exactly the same. If the unit elasticity applies, if elasticity of demand is equal to 1, then cutting the price will have the same revenue as increasing the price or leaving it where it is. It doesn't change anything. If the demand is inelastic, then cutting the price for a price increase, I should say, to start. Price increase, total revenue will increase because the demand is inelastic. Customers want it, irrespective of the price. If the price increases, they're prepared to pay it. It's inelastic. They want it. For a price decrease, the total revenue decreases. let's say we're talking about London and tubes, the tube transport system, elasticity and tube fares. How should tube fares be changed to increase revenue? Well, passengers may use buses, taxis, cars, they could walk. So there's a variety of ways in which passengers can travel. So the demand may be elastic, i.e. greater than one, because there's a lot of substitutes. So we'd expect it to be greater than one. I just said 1.4. It could be 2, it could be 3, it could be any number. But we would expect it to be greater than 1 because we have substitutes. An increase in fares will reduce the number of journeys demanded and total spending. So if the tube companies increase the fares on the tubes, less passengers will use the tube, more will use buses, more will use taxis, more perhaps may even walk if it's possible, if it's within walking distance. So elasticity is an important concept when setting prices. So if they don't have the travel options, demand may be inelastic. Let's say it's minus 0.7. That's less than 1. So increasing the fares in this case means there will be less journeys, but generally speaking, the revenue will be more because roughly the same amount are traveling, perhaps a slightly smaller number, but roughly the same are traveling, but they're paying a higher price, a higher fare. So revenues for the companies will improve. There's also cross-price elasticity of demand. Percentage change in the quantity demanded of good I with respect to the price of good J. And it could be positive or negative. Cross-price elasticity tends to be negative if the two goods are substitutes. So let's say there are two goods, tea and coffee. Let's say the price of coffee increases, less coffee will be consumed, but more tea might be consumed to substitute. So there is a relationship between the price of coffee and the demand for tea. There could also be a positive relationship. Some people take milk in tea, so maybe they're complements. Cars and petrol are complements. Well, at least at the moment, I know electricity and electric cars are making rapid changes in transport, but at the moment, there's still petrol. So if the price of petrol increases, then it may have an effect on the demand for cars. It may not, but it may. There's also income elasticity of demand. The change in the quantity demanded of a good depends on the consumer's income, and this could be positive or negative. In fact, there are two types of good here. Well, three if you want to separate out one of them. We've got two. We've got normal goods that as the income increases, we buy more of the good. That's normal. We call that a normal good. It's related to income, not price. So do be careful. An inferior good, nothing to do with the quality of the good. We say a good is inferior, it doesn't mean that it's a bad quality. It could be a perfectly good quality. Inferior in this case simply refers to the economic relationship between the demand and the income. Demand for the good and income. If, as incomes increase, we buy less of the good, we call it an inferior good. The good itself is not inferior in terms of quality. It's just that's the relationship between income and demand. As our incomes rise, we buy less of something. That's an inferior good in economics. And there's also a luxury good. As incomes increase, we buy even more of this. So if the incomes go up by 2%, we might buy 3% more of this good. So it's called a luxury good. So we have three ways of classifying goods in terms of income elasticity. In terms of diagrams, normal good, income increases, the demand curve will shift outwards. An inferior good, income increases, the demand moves inwards. That's an inferior one. Income increases, demand moves inwards. Normal good, income increases, demand moves out. And that's it. That's all we're going to deal with in this particular class. So let's leave it there and say thank you for watching.